It's three guys who combined to play 15 seasons in the National Football League trenches. Well, two guys. And Mackey, who didn't do shit. This is the O-Line Committee.
All right, Jay, this is your safe space. You sort of touched on it in the first ever interview that we've ever done. Rich Ornberger, check that out. Bonus episode this week. But Booney clowned you for missing last week's show, and now he's missing this week's show. So the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'd turn on our show, right? I'm on the road, I'm driving. I was like, oh, let's hear what the boys talked about. And the first 10 minutes is him just destroying me for going on a family vacation with my kids. And he's like, oh, he likes to go do all these things. And he's like, but he did mention, and he is not wrong, that I do keep him on the rails, because when I'm here, he kind of looks at me like giving those eyes like, whoa, what are you doing, bud? Bring it back to earth.
I'm sort of like the substitute teacher that comes
in,
or
100%.
Like the step parent. Like, he respects me enough to not like just kick me out entirely. But at the end of the day, he's going to see how many boundaries he can push. And, I'm like 150 pounds lighter than he is. So what am I going to do at the end of the day?
My favorite part about that episode, though, and I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up. 2 weeks ago, we ranked the quarterbacks, correct? And I planted a flag that I said the Jets are going to win the division in the AFC East, right? I said that.
Yeah.
Boone asked me if I had had too many beers after mowing the lawn, told me I was an idiot, all these things. And then you guys roll last week. Which AFC teams that made the playoffs this year are not going to make it? What does that big idiot say? He says, well, the Dolphins and the Bills. Oh, so that would mean that out of the Patriots, who are not going to win, I think their over-under set at what, like 3 wins? Or the Jets win the division. So the Jets are going to win the division and go to the playoffs. So Boone essentially backed me. So that's a lying fine by him, first of all. And then that's conduct detrimental for him as well, for him just being able to not remember what he said 2 weeks prior. So just going to throw that out there.
Yeah, I don't think he put like the linear logical thought into what we talked about.
7 days, 7 days apart. He can't remember 7 days. There's nothing he can remember within the last. He doesn't remember what he had for breakfast.
And so, he'll be back next week to defend himself, or he'll just forget what we talked about entirely to start the episode. So, okay, Jeremiah, let's start with the big boy question of the week. We'll get to some mics and some dumb football questions here. Here's my big boy question of the week. Quite simply, the Justin Jefferson contract. Your thoughts?
I think it's perfect. I think it's exactly what the Vikings needed to do. I think they understood they have a rookie now contract for their quarterback. They can afford to pay their superstar. They would have never forgiven themselves if they would have let him walk out of this building with what he can be and the future that he holds. I think it's well-deserved. He's earned every piece of it. I feel like he's done it the right way. He's not getting in trouble off the field. He's not doing it. Like, he checks every box that you want for your superstar on your team that is not a quarterback, right? And now you're saying, okay, let's build J.J. McCarthy and let's pair him with the best weapon in the NFL. Because we talked about this multiple weeks ago when we were leading to the draft, right? Like, does Drake May have enough weapons to be successful, right? Does Jaden Daniels have enough weapons to be successful? Well, if you have Justin Jefferson, the answer is you have enough weapons to be successful in just having him alone, not even pairing him with Addison and pairing him with Hawkinson, like all of those things. So I think it was perfect. I think it was the greatest thing the Vikings could have done, and I don't think they overpaid. I don't think that they raked him so far over the coals that they hamstrung themselves for multiple years down the road.
So a couple things on this. I'm the resident.
Yes,
you played for the Vikings. You were employed by the Vikings, but I am probably the biggest Vikings homer because I host Purple Daily. But I will absolutely hammer this team when they make bad decisions. I will hammer contracts. The Kirk Cousins contracts were just get me off the ride for 5 years. I do not mind this contract. No. You already laid out some of the reasons. So, and you are the anti-JJ McCarthy of the group here. Mm-hmm. And so even more so, if you're skeptical about the young quarterback, how do you give him the best possible chance? Give him the best car to drive.
Yep.
And this morning on ESPN.com, I think this is from Aaron Schatz, who's the founder previously of Football Outsiders. Yeah, he's doing a piece for ESPN.com in which he went back to 1990 and looked at all of the quarterbacks drafted in the top 12 and their situations that they were drafted into. And he ranks J.J. McCarthy, with Justin Jefferson being the main component, as landing in the 4th best situation in the last 3.5 decades of top 12 quarterback picks. You got Justin Jefferson, number one wide receiver in the league. Jordan Addison, as a rookie, 10 touchdown receptions last year. By the way, Justin Jefferson, in 2 games with Nick Mullins, helped Nick Mullins get to 400 yards against the Lions in 2 different games at the end of last season. So, like, Jefferson can do it, whether it's Cousins or a Nick Mullins backup or somebody in between. He's going to go get 100-plus yards a game. But you've got T.J. Hawkinson as one of the top 5 pass-catching tight ends. 2 of the best offensive tackles in the NFL. So I don't know how you can justify bringing in a rookie quarterback on a rookie scale contract, getting rid of the Cousins contract, and then all of a sudden getting cold feet about paying one of your best players, one of the best non-quarterbacks in the league. You had to pay him the $35 million.
100%. You had no choice, right? And if you didn't, you should have traded him last year. Right? Like if you were not willing to pay what he was going to be worth, you should have tried to get something out of him. And the fact that they didn't, I mean, and then when you draft a young quarterback, it just made all the sense in the world, because it's not the situation, which I'll pivot to here in a second, which is going to be my first mic, which is the Dallas Cowboys. But you didn't put your team in a situation where your contract is so big and looms so large that you're going to have pieces fall away behind you that can't support you. Right? Like if your contract's so big and so large that you can't re-sign Christian Darrisaw in a year because, well, then you can't protect your quarterback, then you can't run those big, long developing routes that you want. Like there's so many pieces that go into it. And I thought the Vikings handled this situation extremely well.
So to that point too, about like allocating your resources, I think there's 2 ways to look at this. Number one, you can't pay everyone on your team top of the market, because there's 53 guys on a roster. If you start to do the math on like paying a top quarterback, paying a top edge rusher, you're going to get to $100 million after like 4 players. So you've got to find certain pockets of value. You do need an edge rusher on a rookie scale deal or a quarterback on a rookie scale deal. Well, the Vikings have those 2 things. They've got McCarthy rookie scale, Dallas Turner rookie scale. Okay, so who are we paying? Well, Darrisaw, top left tackle, he's coming up at some point. Jefferson, top wide receiver. Like the Vikings are actually, if you look at where they're at now and where they're headed into the 2025 spring, the offseason, so they already have wide receiver, tight end. They've got bookend tackles. I think even losing Danielle Hunter, they've upgraded their edge rusher room with Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, and then Dallas Turner with their other first-round pick. So you've got some really nice like structure here. And you have a first-round pick in 2025 that you didn't have to give up when you were trading to get your quarterback. And right now the Vikings have like the 6th or 7th most salary cap space of any team in the league. So this 24 might not be the year for the Vikings because Packers, Lions, I mean, there's some teams at the top of the division, but they're going to be
young quarterback and a rookie. So I mean, very rarely. I mean, and I still think Sam Darnold starts the year, right?
Right.
Like Boone sent us this article is like, because Boone says that McCarthy's going to start, right? And Boone said the article, like, he's picking it up. He's doing great. I was like, well, no one's going to write an article about, like, oh, he's shitting the bed. Like, no one's going to come out and be like, yeah, McCarthy, I mean, we messed up. He's not getting it, right? Like, of course they're going to pub him up. But I do think Sam Darnold starts the part of the year. Eventually we will see J.J. McCarthy. Maybe we don't. But maybe they're starting again, and this is where we pre-draft, we're talking about things like, but this is where the cap guys, this is where Kwesi, this is where all those dudes are projecting to 25, 26, 27. Like, how do we build a Super Bowl level team? Well, this was the building blocks of it. Get your superstars in-house. Don't let your best players walk out of the door. Find a way to keep them, and then add through the draft to make sure that everything can stay under the salary cap.
Speaking of CTE flare-up right there.
Yeah.
Speaking of Sam Darnold, this is a great potential career-saving situation for him too, right?
This could be a Baker Mayfield situation for him.
Geno Smith, yeah.
If he can come in and he can, like you said, drive this car that is built around him and let this rookie QB sit behind and learn and understand what it's like to be in the NFL for a year, and let him come out here and win this team 8-9 games, like do his thing, someone will pay him. There's just not enough good quarterbacks out there. Someone will pay him to come do his thing.
So here's the crazy thing. If you look at, it's kind of a small sample size, and I'm cherry picking a little bit here, but if Darnold gets out of the Jets train wreck dumpster fire organization, he lands in Carolina. So his last year in Carolina, he made 6 starts to end the season, and then he made the 1 start for San Francisco last year in place of Brock Purdy. So 7 starts the last 2 years, most of them in Carolina. His teams were 4-3 in those 7 starts. If you extrapolate his numbers in 7 games to a full season, he had a 91 passer rating, which was tied with Joe Burrow if you took last year's quarterback rankings, just ahead of Kyler Murray, Trevor Lawrence, Jalen Hurts. He would have had about 3,600 yards, which puts him kind of middle of the pack in the NFL. 7.7 yards per attempt, which would have tied him for 6th with Dak Prescott. And a 20 touchdown to 7 interception ratio. I mean, I'm not talking about Patrick Mahomes here, but
no,
like that gets you $30 million a year if you do that for.
And he's in one of the greatest spots to be like a veteran, seasoned, experienced quarterback, right? Like it's one thing to throw a rookie out there who's crazy talented, right? And McCarthy, I'm going to jump on board because I have to. But like,
oh, this is a seminal moment here.
It's not. I mean, I'm going to talk about the Vikings for the next 10 years. I can't just shit on the kid all day, right? Like he is part. I said it on Collier's podcast. If the Vikings select him, I will support the kid. I'm not going to bag him anymore. I just had my opinion.
Wow, this is big
but
here.
If you let Sam Darnold come in there and put him through the Alex Smith, Patrick Mahomes game plan, right? And let Sam, if he's serviceable and he's winning you football games, he's keeping you competitive in football games, let JJ learn. Let him be his guy. Let him understand and let him take that jump instead of throwing some of those dudes in the fire like the Bryce Youngs, that all those things, and being like, well, let's see if he can do it. I'm cool with it. Darnold, this might reinvigorate his career. This might get him another 10 years in the league as a backup, right? Like you go play serviceable for a full season, like you're going to be around the league as an experienced guy for as long as there's a place for you.
Yeah. Can I, before you get to your Cowboys, Mike, I want to fly through the 10 best situations for top 12 drafted quarterbacks since 1990.
Okay.
And you tell me what stands out.
I'm with you.
Number 10, Jay Cutler, 2006 Broncos. So Rod Smith was still there.
Yep.
1,000-yard running backs every year during that.
Clinton Portis, right?
It had transitioned to Mike Anderson by then.
Yeah.
But then like Brandon Marshall was in there on the wide receiver front. Phillip Rivers in 2004 with the Chargers. LaDainian Tomlinson. Keenan McCardell apparently was in San Diego at the time.
I was 10 years old.
You know, later on you would become teammates with Phillip Rivers.
Old Phillip.
Number 8 is Patrick Mahomes with the 2017 Chiefs.
Oh, yeah. That's Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. I mean, that's a bit low. That's a bit low.
Andy Reid.
Yeah, I mean, that whole situation was perfect. And he sat for a year.
Joe Burrow, 2020 Bengals. And they're looking at like some of the weapons. Now, their offensive line was very much a work in progress. Yeah. Number 6, Matthew Stafford, 2009 Lions. Calvin Johnson.
I mean, that elevates you to the top 10 regardless of who else is there.
2021 Justin Fields comes in at number 5. I don't know about that one. Allen Robinson.
Who do you have?
They're saying Allen Robinson.
Old.
Darnell Mooney.
Terrible.
Jimmy Graham, but he was 35.
Yeah, that's a bad spot. He's out of the top 10. He was not a great spot.
That feels revision. Like I don't even know. Yeah, I don't know why. Why would he be 5th and Patrick Mahomes 8th?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. That makes no sense.
Number 4, JJ McCarthy in the current Viking situation.
Yes.
Number 3, 2006 Matt Leinart with Larry Fitzgerald and Anquan Bolden. They also signed Edgerrin James toward the end of his career after he ran for 1,500 yards the year before with the Colts.
Yeah, that was a good car, and Matt crashed it.
Yeah. Number 2, current day Caleb Williams.
I would agree with that, dude. We talked about that when he got drafted. DJ Moore, you've got Swift at the running back spot. What's his name? Komet just had an all-pro year at tight end, and then they brought Keenan Allen over too.
Yeah.
Like that, he's got a lot of weapons to throw the football to.
And then, I don't know, I'm putting you on the spot, but can you guess number 1? Quarterbacks drafted first round, top 12 draft picks going back to 1990. Who landed in the best situation?
Give me a range of years, like a decade. Is it the 90s to the 2000s, 2000s, 2010?
Drafted 1999. So and then didn't play until his second year, and immediately NFC Championship game.
Tom Brady?
A team that you are very familiar with.
Oh, Denver Broncos, John Elway.
No.
No?
No, he was drafted at
I don't know.
Dante Culpepper.
Culpepper.
So he gets drafted, sits for a year. He's got Denny Green, one of the great offensive minds of the 90s.
Yep.
Peak Randy Moss, Chris Carter. I think Jake Reed was still around for a year or two. Robert Smith was still there. Great offensive line at the time. And a team that was coming off a 15-1 season in 98 trip to the NFC Championship game. So, and Culpepper, basically, I think Scott Linehan was the offensive coordinator for a couple years there. Just cut the field in half, throw the ball to Randy Moss about 60 yards down this way. And
as far as you can throw it, just do it.
So those are the top 10 quarterback situations.
The Fields one's bad. That one, he needs to get dropped out of there. All those receivers were not.
Yeah. It was also the longest explanation of all of them, which, okay, now we're trying to justify.
Someone's trying to pound the table of why they're right, and they're like, no, sir, you are not correct.
Yeah. So, okay, hit us with the first mic here, Jay.
Yeah, so my mic is going to be the Dallas Cowboys organization with CeeDee Lamb's contract extension still very much looming. They were probably hoping to maybe get theirs done before Jefferson did because, as anything, once one guy signs, then the next guy wants more. Always, right? It happened with Joe Burrow, right? He signed it, and then Hurts. It very rarely do you see a superstar position like that when the market gets set for whatever price it is. Very rarely do you see a guy sign for less. And so now CeeDee Lamb's going to be knocking on Jerry Jones' office door this morning and being like, "Morning, Jerry. So you saw the news up north, right? Here's what we're going to do." And Jerry Jones is going to sit there with his white face going, "Well, I have you, I have Dak Prescott, and I have Micah Parsons. All are going to want to pay top-tier money. All of you are going to want to be paid at the top of your position." And he's going to have to make a really, really tough decision on one of those guys has got to go. They got to go.
As I told you briefly off mic before we said, let's save it for the show, it is not a tough decision. If you have Micah Parsons, CeeDee Lamb, and Dak Prescott, and only two can get paid, I say goodbye to NFC East Kirk Cousins. I say goodbye. As Colin Cowherd says, Dak Prescott is Kirk Cousins with a better brand. Both of them put up great regular season numbers. Both of them make a lot of money. Neither one of them can carry a team, even a really good team, deep into the playoffs.
But that team's too talented. They're not going to pick in the top 10. So what are you going to do for a quarterback? Trey Lance? Is Trey Lance your answer? Because that's the question, Mackey. It's not as much as yes, I agree. If you
Sam Darnold,
you line all three of those guys up equally, and you say pick two out of the three. Well, yeah, it's easy to be like, well, Parsons, CeeDee Lamb, but you have to look at it from the larger perspective of, well, who's going to be our quarterback?
Is it
Trey Lance?
Would you rather have Trey Lance? He's played 3 football games in 10 years. I have a hard time. Looks like a talented guy, but
that's what I'm saying.
Would you rather pay Dak Prescott $60 million a year on a new because the next round of quarterbacks
60.
for next year's cap is going to be 55 plus 60 million, right? Would you rather pay Dak Prescott $60+ million a year or Baker Mayfield last year? He set sort of this Geno Smith the year before, and then Baker Mayfield set that secondary tier market. Let's say Darnold has a pretty darn good season, free agent after the year, or would you rather pay $35 million over $70 million over 2 years for Sam Darnold while you draft a quarterback late first, early second? You create a bridge situation.
You have to, but that team's Jerry Jones. You have to remember the mindset of Jerry's. I got to win another one before I die.
And you're not gonna with Dak Prescott making $60 million.
But yeah. But that's the thing is I think it's going to be a harder decision than most people think because as we've talked about it, there's probably only 20 starting quarterbacks in the league that are legitimate starters, and Dak's one of those 20. And if you let him walk out of the door and you're not picking in the top 10 to draft a quarterback, you're really rolling the dice.
Now, could you, and I haven't looked at the exact contract situation, but so maybe I'm just wrong on this, but if you signed Dak to a new deal, big signing bonus, you could sort of backload the accounting. Could you create some space with an extension of some kind for
that's
2025-26.
Well, that's what
right?
they have to decide is, are we in our Super Bowl window? Like, are we in our window of where we're just going to say, you know what? The future of this organization will pay for our sins, right? Like the future, the 27, 28 teams, they will pay for the sins of the 24 and the 25 and the 26 team because we're in what we believe our Super Bowl window, right? We have our pieces in place. Zach Martin's getting to the end of his career. Tank Lawrence is getting to the end of his career. Like, we've got these veterans lined up. Do we just say, screw it, we'll find the money and we'll pay for it later? Or do we say, okay, we're in this kind of rebuild, not really, because we have so many superstars? That's the question that's going to be going on in Dallas right now. And the problem is it's all going to come down to one guy, Jerry Jones. What does he want to do, right? There's no checks and balances there. There is no checks to the power. It is Emperor Jerry decides what we do and not do, and he's going to ultimately be the one that lives and dies with his decision.
And I get what you're saying about Jerry. It just there's something off about a team that wins 12 games in the regular season, 3 straight years, dominant regular season team, and can't get past the divisional round in the playoffs, playing the Packers at home, and you get walked out of the stadium. Like, and Jordan Love just figures it out in early November for the first time, and he comes in and does whatever he wants. I don't know, something just feels off with even some of the stuff that came out. Like, there's guys in the locker room and people friends and family that are chirping on social media about Dak. So there's something off about Dak as the figurehead of that team in terms of winning a Super Bowl.
I don't disagree with you, but I'll say this: the grass isn't always greener, right? Like, it's one of those things where, yes, you might have a lot of people that are calling for your head, but then you bring someone else in and it's even more of a train wreck, and you end up missing Dak. And I don't know. I think this will be an interesting year. If Dak goes out and wins them a couple playoff games this year, then do you pay him? Right? Like, you're gonna get the best of Dak Prescott this year because it's contract year.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he's playing for all the marbles. So, and if the Cowboys don't pay him, someone else will. That's the other piece of it. Like, if the Cowboys let him walk, someone will pay him $55 million next year after that.
Yeah, the supply and demand would still. I mean, hell, look what Kirk got with the Falcons.
There's
right?
never enough of them. There's never enough quality starting quarterbacks.
Yeah. Okay, next, Mike. Draymond Green. Draymond Green said a few days ago, the NBA does not set us up to be wealthy because of the fines that are levied in the league.
This dude's made, I looked it up, he's made over $177 million. With the current contract that he's still going to get paid out for, because if you don't recall, all NBA contracts are what we like to refer to in the business as fully fucking guaranteed. Like, the second the ink is dry, the money will be in your bank account.
$255 by the time his current contract runs out.
So no, like, and if you go back and look at some of the fines, I think he's been fined over like $2 million. I think is like what the fine is. But like, dude, half of them are him like choking a guy out at full court, like throwing a punch at the foul line, like legitimate things that, like, yeah, you should get fined for that. He kicked a dude in the nuts. He stomped a dude on his chest. And you want to say the league is why we're not wealthy? That's the dumbest take I think I've ever heard. Like, how do you say that the NBA with fully guaranteed contracts isn't setting guys up to be wealthy because of the fine system? Right? When I first read that, my first thought in my mind was like, oh, he must be talking like there's no education. Right, they don't do the like rookie success program of like, hey, save your money,
blow all your money. Yeah.
Don't like. I was like, maybe okay, I can get on board with that. And then as I kept reading the article, and he was blaming the league and their fine systems.
He said, so this job is not set up the way that we're. So he said two things. It's the fines and the taxes.
Taxes.
But like everyone gets taxed. So yeah, welcome, dude. How about the person making $100,000 that's getting taxed? Like, they're the ones that are having a hard time getting wealthy. He goes, the way we're taxed and the way we're fined. You know, you hear about all these programs, like this program, that program. And then he goes, this program is to teach this guy. But if I do something wrong, I lose $100,000 on a fine. Man, it took my mom 4 years when I was growing up to make $100,000. And I lose that in one night because what? The referee got mad at me? No, it's because you tried to choke Rudy Gobert unconscious, dude.
Like,
and you turned around and punched a Suns player in the middle of a play,
and the whole thing's relative to scale. To like, yeah, dude, the dude at the grocery store, if he chokes a guy out, he's not going to get fined $100,000. Like,
Bob,
you're making,
sorry, Bob.
Like, you're making millions, so therefore we can't just be like, hey, it's $100 fine. Like, the fine has to hurt relative to the scale in which you make your money. So yeah, don't be an idiot. Like, all I could think about is that scene from Liar Liar when Jim Carrey's like, stop breaking the law, asshole. Like, that's all you have to do. Don't be an asshole. Don't choke dudes out. Don't punch them in the face, and you won't get fined. I played my whole career, never got fined. It's not a hard thing to do. And so to blame the NBA for that was the most I think he's in that stage of his career now where, like, he's done playing-ish, right? He's off the is he still playing or no?
Yeah, oh yeah. He's
okay.
So he's going to
He
play.
wasn't in the playoffs. That's what I was saying.
He's
so
only 32 still,
right?
Somehow, yeah.
So he wasn't in the playoffs, and he's in this realm of, like, how do I keep myself, like, in the news? How do I keep myself relative and all these things? Let's just say outlandish things. And, like, but part of me thinks he actually believes that. Like,
I think he believes this.
Like, I think he actually believes the league is out to get him. Right, like he's like, I'll wear it. I'll be the guy. I'll be the scapegoat for the NBA. The villain. It's like, no, you're just not a good person. Like, you just try and do ridiculous things on the court.
What's wild too is, I was at Target Center for all these Timberwolves playoff games. Sad trombone. They were on a roll there, and the Mavericks came on. But Draymond, who again choked out Rudy Gobert, a Timberwolf, he was at Target Center for a few of the Inside the NBA visits, and he was getting booed. Like, Wolves fans hate him, and he's up there and he's ripping, Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns. And I realized two things. Number one, the NBA and TNT gave their biggest villain their biggest platform in the postseason. He literally had to be suspended an indefinite amount of time to go to, like, anger management therapy because he kept assaulting people on the basketball court. He comes back to finish the season. The Warriors essentially miss out on seeding and the playoffs because one of their best players, Draymond Green, can't keep himself on the court. And so they put him on national TV in the middle seat, symbolically, to speak on behalf of the league. And it's like, dude, I don't know, man. I'm trying to think of the NFL equivalent. Like, who is the biggest malcontent bad boy that you would put in the center seat on, the NBC Sunday night pregame show? So, weird decision. Give me one more, Mike, before we get to dumb football questions.
I don't know if you and Booney talked about this last week, but the fact that the NFL is maybe doing away with OTAs. So Tom Pelissero,
we barely touched on this.
Yeah, so Tom Pelissero came out and said that the NFL Player Association is working to finalize a proposal to overhaul the offseason starting as soon as 2025, eliminating voluntary on-field work in the spring in favor of long-term training camp ramped up with players reporting mid-June, early July, per some sources. And I don't know how I feel about this. Like, I'm very torn, and I put a tweet out about it because as a vet, as like a 4th, 5th, 6th year guy, all for this. Sign me up. Let me go do my thing. Let me go train where I need to train. I know what I have to do. Like, let's do it. As a rookie, 1st, 2nd year guy trying to break your way in the league, this is a nightmare. Like, this is an absolute nightmare situation because what people don't understand is OTAs, like, you're not gearing up for the season, right? It's about development. It's about getting guys reps. It's about getting and learning the playbook and understanding that. Training camp is focused on winning a Super Bowl. So if you're in that lower tier of level of player fighting for the back end of the roster or trying to get reps, you don't get very many reps at training camp, right? Like, those are focused for the 1s and the 2s and the dudes that are going to be playing on Sundays. And if you're not a top 3 round draft pick, very rarely are you going to be the guy right away. Like, you have to fight your way into that role. And so if you're saying you're going to get drafted at the end of April and then not show up until middle of June and then be like, hey, season's like 2 months away, boys, like, buckle in. I don't like that. I don't think that's enough time for the young players to get in, to get developed, to get the right chances. Like, I think it's really, really going to hurt the NFL if the young players don't have the offseason program.
So, okay, a couple things. I feel like it just, the longer you don't, even veterans, the longer you don't see guys, the higher percentage
For sure.
chance they are out of shape or arrested or like something happens. There's 90 guys on the offseason rosters that you have to keep track of times 32 teams. But the other question is, if these guys are going to, let's say this happens and the roster reports in like early to mid-June. So that's a month and a half tacked on to the already month and a half long training camp that starts in late July before the season starts in the middle of September. So you're going to have like 3 months of 3 months of training camp. Is there going to be a week in there somewhere where you guys can get away and like a bye week during training camp? That's a long grind, man.
It's a long grind. Like I agree, because what's great about the OTAs is it's 10 weeks and then you get like a 5-week summer. Right? Like, and yes, it's not a vacation summer. It's like you have to train and get yourself ready to go to show up to training camp, but you're not in it. Like, you're not just engulfed in the facility and around the coaches and the high stress that it is when you're there. And again, I'm talking from a younger player's perspective, right? If you're Kirk Cousins, you don't care how long you're in the facility, right? If you're Trent Richardson, you know you're good. But if you're a vet guy and you're fighting for a job and every day you show up, like, you know that everything's being evaluated, like, I'm fighting for this thing, it just can get mentally exhausting. And the season in itself, when you report late July, if you go deep into February, is already exhausting. Like, I just don't think that would be good mentally for the players to be in the building that long from mid-July till possibly February. Like, dude, that's a grind. Like, and I get it. Everyone's like, well, everyone has their own real jobs and you go. It's like, no, I understand that. But like the mental fatigue and the stress fatigue that will wear on you from that season would be really, really tough.
Imagine if your job also involved being physically taxed every single day and bruised and beat up. Like, you can't compare it to most of us normal cubicle.
I'd be curious Boone's take on this, because I have a feeling Boone would be all about it. Like, I feel like, and we'll probably have to bring this up again, but I think Alex would be like, oh yeah, put me in the facility more, right? Like, he just like, he loved football so much, and I'm not saying that I don't, but it was a nice yearly cycle that you kind of fell into when you're in the league of, like, started with the offseason, get your body back, start working yourself back out, get to OTAs, continue to ramp yourself up, get back engaged in football, back on the field, doing some more things, and then go home, regroup again, see your family, fresh air, still training your balls off. And then once July hit, don't talk to me again till January.
Yeah.
Right. But if you push that back to June, I mean, you're talking 6 months of grinding it out without any breaks. I don't think that's a great thing for the players.
Yeah. No, but once stuff like this, usually stuff like this gets floated through the media as like a trial balloon to see what does the public think, the media think, what do players think. So it's no coincidence that this got leaked out as a trial balloon here during the
I also think it has to do with the fact that OTAs are not what they used to be. Like, dude, OTAs pre-new CBA was blowing and going, and you were getting it. Like, it was practice, right? Yeah. You had the spider shells on, and like, you were going. Like, OTAs were big time. Now and I think that's part of it, is like, a lot of the players are like, what are we even doing here? Like, we're just working out. Like, we're just working out. And as a veteran, that's what you're thinking. You're like, I can get a better workout with my trainer back home in my facility and the whole bit. But that's great. But there would have to be some type of bridge program for the young players, like players that don't have 2+ credited seasons, right? Like, if you've got 2+ credited seasons, you're your own man. Figure it out. But like, if you're not, we still have to teach you and develop you and understand what it means to be a pro day in and day out. And just throwing you into the fire in June and expecting you to be ready to help us win a championship come September, I just don't think that makes sense.
Yeah. Let's do some dumb football questions here before we part ways. You can always submit your dumb football questions. No question is too dumb to make it to the show here in the YouTube comment section. Click that subscribe button and the like button on the O-Line Committee YouTube channel. And while you're at it, why don't you take your butt over to aura.com, aura.com/O-Line Committee, and start your free 2-week trial. You can help the show, by the way, when you start a free 2-week trial. So the odds of falling victim to an online crime in 2024 are 1 in 4. Also, have you ever put your name into a Google search? Yeah, a lot of information about you, your relatives, maybe even your health records, your previous addresses, things that might be unsettling when you put your name into a Google search. That's where Aura comes in, the sponsor of today's podcast, an all-in-one protection platform from identity theft to scams, online threats across your devices for the whole family. You can even monitor your kids' devices and block harmful content and manage how much time your kids spend online. Again, you can help the show by going to aura.com, aura.com/O-Line /O-line committee and start your free 2-week trial and get protected from online threats. And even once you start paying, it's only like $12 a month. Very affordable and very easy to install.
And by the way, I'm with Boone. My kids ain't getting a phone until they're at least 16.
Okay.
I'm a little earlier than him. I'm with you, Mac. Once they start driving. He's like
30. Once they're 30, they can get their phone.
Once they're married and with children, they can have a phone. No, but I'm with Boone on the fact that no phones till you're 16 and you're driving.
Once you have your second kid, then maybe you can have a phone. Okay. On your second marriage. Okay, let's go to the dumb football questions. Arbitrate says, if there wasn't a salary cap, which team would have the best roster?
I mean, any team, because you wouldn't have a salary cap, right? So you could just be. Are you saying like what team has the best starting point?
I'm taking it as here's how I take it.
How are you taking this?
I think it's a revenue question. So like in baseball,
got you.
In baseball, there's no salary cap, so. And now there's a lot of teams like the Rays and the Guardians and the Twins even that have found ways to just win 90 games with a third of the payroll. But here's what's crazy about the NFL. Most of the revenue is national TV revenue. Mm-hmm. That's why it's the only sport where you can have a team in Green Bay, Wisconsin and Jacksonville, Florida compete with New York and LA. And most teams bring in between $500 and $600 million in annual revenue, except there's like a handful of teams that bring in so much merchandise and, new stadium money. Like the Raiders, the Rams, the Giants, the Niners, and the Patriots are all kind of a level above everyone else. And then there's the Cowboys that bring in like double what the average team does. So, like, probably the Cowboys. You have a desperate, old, rich owner, and you bring in more merchandise revenue than anybody else.
And right? I was gonna say Texas too, because players will want to play where there's no state income tax.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, Dallas is kind of, and that if you go to Dallas, you're gonna get a ton of notoriety. So you're gonna get a bunch of off the field stuff, right? On top of no salary cap, it has to be Dallas. It 100% has to be Dallas. And I think I want to say weirdly that New York might be the second. With the Giants, just because it's a huge market. Like, those guys are crazy too. I could see New York being up there too, but yeah, that's definitely Dallas's. I mean, who it's not, the Bengals, like the Panthers, right? Like, those are the teams that I don't think, like, they just don't make enough money to be able to fund everything that they would want to.
But it's like again, baseball, most of the money that comes in is local TV money, local ticket money. So bigger market equals more demand, more people to fill the seats. You can charge more money for tickets, more eyeballs to watch the TV product, so the local team can charge more money or gets more money from advertisers. So it's in the NFL, that Fox deal, that NBC deal, that gets divvied up 32 different ways. Like, Jerry Jones doesn't make more money off NBC than Bob from Onalaska that owns the Packers with his little certificate. So I mean, the Cowboys, the Giants, just because they're going to have a little bit more merchandising.
A little more merchandise, a little more marketing.
Austin HB asks, does the coaching staff allow star players to voice opinions on coaching hires or personnel moves?
Personnel moves, yes. I don't think maybe if you're the franchise QB if you're Patrick Mahomes and for whatever reason Andy Reid retires and moves on, I think he's probably going to get a say in who the next head coach is going to be, right? But very rarely there's probably maybe one or two guys on each team that would be able to even have a seat at the table, let alone a voice in the decision process. But yeah, I mean, players all the time will have decisions in who do we want to keep, who do you like, who don't you like. Like, the veterans in the rooms will always, a lot of those guys will get consulted of like, hey, how do you feel about this player? Like, he's a bubble guy. If we had to take one of these two guys, who would it be? Like, there's definitely a lot of veterans that get put into that. I also think that there's some veterans that'll get put into the positional coaching. Like, hey, I know a guy who's been with me forever. I mean, I know when the Vikings brought Uwe over, the assistant or the strength coach from San Fran, like, they talked to Boone about it. They talked to some guys around the league that had been with him. Like, what do you think? Like, oh, he'd be great. He'd be good. So I think that they take polling from the players, but obviously the end-all be-all being the GM or the owner who kind of makes those decisions. But I do think there is a little bit of how do you feel about this guy? And if it's a huge red flag, then maybe that's another piece of the puzzle when they're trying to put it together.
See, like on the Vikings front, I remember right before the trade deadline last year. So on Sunday, Kirk Cousins tears his Achilles, out for the season. Trade deadline is 48 hours on Tuesday. And the Vikings were 4-4, but you're starting Nick Mullins and whoever. It wound up being Josh Dobbs off the street. And Danielle Hunter was set to be a free agent. Now we saw, who was it? The Bears traded for
Sweat.
For Sweat, like a second round pick.
And Chase Young, and then the Niners traded for Chase Young.
Yep. So like I don't know if you get a first round pick, but probably a second round pick for a guy that's going to walk. And Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, the Vikings GM, came out and publicly said, yeah, I actually talked to the leaders in the locker room and I kind of ran it by them. And they said, don't trade Danielle Hunter. Let's keep pushing forward. And that struck me as an example of, you definitely want to listen to your players, but does that team really have a chance to do anything meaningful with backup quarterbacks? You also don't want to send the wrong message to a locker room of 53 guys and a coaching staff. But that's probably an example of, you just have to play the bad guy and get your second round pick in retrospect.
Yeah, and middle of season too, no one's ever going to be like, yes, trade our superstar. Because guess what? We hate losing too. Like, it sucks. Coming to work after a loss week in and week out is awful, right? I went 6-10 with the Bills, dude. That was a tough year, right? Tough year. You're just coming into work and you're like, well, maybe we can win this week. Not sure, right? Like, you didn't have that great success feeling of like, I can do this, we can roll. And, you know, I think that if middle of the season, if you're like, hey, should we trade the all-pro pass rusher? No, we don't want you to trade him. But I agree with you. There becomes a point when you have to look at the broader landscape and be like, well, yeah, but what are we actually going to do with him this week, or this year? Like, are we going to re-sign him? Is he going to be affordable? All those things. And so, you know, yeah, there's time and a place, offseason being one where you can have more of an objection, thousand-eye view as a player to look in at things and be like, okay, what are we thinking? But you're never going to get a rational response out of players when you're asking about personnel decisions in the middle of the year.
Yeah. Do you have time for one more?
Absolutely.
Or do we have to wrap here?
No,
okay.
Let's roll.
Okay. Will the Jedi on the YouTube comment says, how do players and coaches deal with playing against former teammates or teams? So, for example, if Team A plays Team B, and a player who used to play on Team A is now on Team B, and this happens, like a guy will get waived. Sometimes
it's happened to me.
Okay. So how does that work? You used to be in the trenches with this team. Now you're over here. Are they tapping you for information, or what's going on?
Oh, yeah. So 2015, I got traded to the Vikings, and the Chargers were coming to town week 3, I think it was. And I got pulled into the D-line coach's office, and he was like, tell me everything. And I was like, I called my agent, and I was like, okay, he was like, after practice, tell me everything. And I called my agent. I was like, what do we do here? Like, is this like backstabbing? Is this like, it was just kind of an inner conflict. And I remember agent was like, who writes your checks? I was like, got it.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I walked right into, oh gosh, what was the D-line? Andre
Patterson.
I walked right into Andre Patterson's on, and I was like, all right, here's how they do every protection, right? This is how they line it up. Here's the calls that they make. Like, here's what they're going to do to try and mess with you. This is the backup calls to the backup calls. If you hear this check, it's a wide receiver screen, right? Because I knew that offense like the back of my hand because I had to in order to make that team. And so I knew everything. And when I tell you that we beat the living hell out of Phillip Rivers, and I almost felt bad by how well like Anthony Barr and Everson, everyone was getting home. Like, I felt kind of bad, but I was like, I guess, I don't know. I think that's the right thing to do. And I actually talked to, who was it? I think it was Kellen Clemens, who was the backup quarterback. I talked to him a few years later, and he came up to me. He's like, did you sell us down the river when we played you guys? I was like, oh, yeah. He's like, we thought so. And, like, it was bad. Like, but, I mean, at the end of the day, you play for who signs your checks, right? And so, like, and you can't change everything, right? Like, you can have a few code words here and there, but, like, for 1 week, you're not going to be like, hey, we know that we had a guy in our training camp, in our thing that was here with us all the way up to the end. We're going to change everything this week, right? It just doesn't logically make sense. So you have to try and just overcome it a little bit. But Yeah, when I tell you I gave the Vikings the keys to the kingdom, the answers to the test on how to beat Phillip Rivers and his blitz protection, yeah, it sucked. But yeah, at the end of the day, you kind of just roll with it.
That's so fat. I feel like you see all the time these like fringe roster guys, like Emir Smith-Marset was a fringe roster receiver from the Vikings. Bears pick him up. Maybe that's something. Maybe the Bears are seeing a talented guy regardless of where he was before, but. If you can lean toward we're going to play this team twice, it'd be nice to know some of the things that they talk about in the huddle. It makes total sense why you see that. So it's a good question.
You sell them down the river, man. They didn't want you. They didn't want you. It's not your fault. Sell them down the river.
Yeah. Who signs your checks, kids? Who signs your checks?
Yep. Do not bite the hand that feeds, as my dad would always say.
So keep hitting us up with your dumb football questions here. We'll keep plowing through this offseason, and maybe we can get the band back together. Maybe you and Boone and me can all be in the same place at the same time next week.
I think this may be the least amount of F-bombs ever dropped on an O-line committee podcast.
I feel like I've only dropped like 2 ever in the audience because I don't swear on the Score North podcast.
They love it. They love it. When you drop one, they're like, "Oh, he's human."
When you're bound by FCC regulations for 20 years, you're definitely gun shy.
Boone's not bound by anything.
No.
But yes,
no,
we'll all be back together next week.
Yep. So that's a wrap. O-line committee. Thank you guys again for getting us to 20,000 YouTube subscribers. The best way you can help us is to keep listening or watching and click that like button and the subscribe button on the YouTube channel. For Jay, I'm Phil. We'll see you guys next week.